I was born into a family of 3 girls by a mother who struggled for more than a decade with infertility. She joked that from conception, I was the best eater out of all of her babies, which is why she gained more weight while pregnant with me than with any of her other pregnancies, including my twin sisters. My earliest memories center around food. Any occasion where food was present was an opportunity for me to enjoy myself the way I enjoyed absolutely nothing else. I wasn't overweight as a child. My mom studied nutrition in college and did her best to feed us well. So most of the time I was eating healthy options in pretty appropriate portions. But whenever I was allowed to make my own meals, practically every one turned into a binge. I just couldn't get enough. From a very young age, I began noticing all the other girls around me who were outgoing and funny and well-liked. And as much as I wanted to be just like them, I wasn't. I was quiet and shy and introverted. And the more I saw these girls make friends, get boyfriends, and climb up the social ladder, the more insecure and isolated I became. I started asking everyone around me, "Are you mad at me?" But in reality, my heart was asking, "Do you like me? Am I good enough to be your friend?" But in late elementary school, when a girl I really liked answered with, "I'm not mad at you, I just don't like you," I finally stopped asking. But that single rejection, that one "I don't like you," became the foundation of my belief system. I thought if she doesn't like me, then no one does. At some point in my childhood, I began to take on every problem of the world. If a friend was upset, it had to have been because of something I said. Or if a boy hadn't called, it was probably because I was boring or needy or annoying. If my parents were arguing, it was over something that I must have caused. My self-confidence was practically non-existent, but no matter what, food always made me feel better. I started my very first diet when I was just a preteen. I thought that if I could just eat a little less and only eat when I was hungry, I could lose a few pounds and get the affirmation I really wanted. And it worked. After only about a month of skipping snacks, I was 10 pounds lighter and everyone noticed. I got compliments and boys started to pay more attention to me and people even called me pretty. It felt incredible to finally be liked, and I thought that I finally had it made. But eventually the compliments weren't enough. Friends were still mean, and my parents still argued, and my sisters still fought with me. And I felt like a victim in my own world. And I realized that skinny or not, food would never hurt my feelings. So this started the cycle that most of us as women know today. I dieted, lost a little, felt great, but then I just started overeating again as soon as life got hard. I'd gain and lose, always having a little harder time losing and a much easier time gaining with each round. I thought that if I could just get to my goal weight and stay there, I would be happy. But I didn't have a weight problem. I had a heart problem. When I was 17, I moved 1,000 miles away from my home in Kentucky to go to school in Florida. I was ready for change and a fresh start, and I couldn't wait to grow up and be on my own. I attended a discipleship school based out of a church, and it was the hardest, most amazing year of my life. I learned that my feelings weren't facts, and that my heart was made to be nurtured and loved, and that I was good enough just the way I was. I came to see God as a friend and a healer and even as a lover. It was in this first year away that I truly started to see hope in what had been a fairly consistent hopelessness for far too long. It was during my second year away that a miracle happened. I was standing in my kitchen for no particular reason when a complete thought entered my mind without any rhyme or reason, and with such depth and truth that I knew it didn't come from my own imagination. Your relationship with food is warped. You're trying to feed your soul through your stomach rather than through me. And it was in that moment that I saw that I was going to food the way God wanted me to go to Him. When life was painful, I ate. And when it was wonderful, I ate. I obsessed about food, whether it was healthy or not, and my greatest joy was in what I consumed. I measured my righteousness by what I put in my body. So one day I'd be the healthiest, most righteous person I knew, but the next, after eating too much, I'd feel like the scum of the earth. My foundation was food. Admitting I was addicted to food came very easily once God Himself pointed it out. I didn't try to justify my actions. I wanted to be better. I wanted to fill the void in my soul with God and not food. But all the desire in the world couldn't save me. I bought every new book on food addiction I could find. I learned about the healthiest diets the world had to offer and all the biochemical aspects of each. I devoted myself to healthy eating, and I tried to only eat when I was hungry. I also desperately attempted moderation and stopping when I was full. And although I learned more than I could have ever needed to know, as soon as I started to feel life again, I always ended up headfirst back in the addictive eating cycles like before. The justifications, everything in moderation, food isn't sinful, a little won't hurt, they all led me straight into a downward path toward binging and sickness every single time. Life would hurt, and I'd get this impossible to ignore craving for any of my favorite foods, healthy or not. But what I failed to recognize was that the craving for Oreos, bread, and zebra cakes weren't cravings for food at all. They were my soul craving intimacy with God. So I'd pray after every binge that God would give me the self-control to resist next time, and I'd resolve the next morning to do better. I tried to fix my addiction to food, but with every binge and failed attempt at self-control, I became more discouraged, more depressed, heavier, malnourished, and spiritually hungry. My desire, no matter how strong, to live in freedom from food addiction was never enough to save me. I always used to pray that God would heal me from my addiction to food, and every time I'd fail at self-control around it, I'd wonder why He hadn't answered my prayers. I desperately desired to live in freedom from, rather than bondage to, the addictive eating habits I had, but my desire seemed to do very little for me. Then one day last July, someone told me I had to take action first before I could walk in freedom, because the desire simply may never come. And what I realized they meant was that I had to walk in obedience regardless of how strongly my flesh craved food. So that very day, I gave up the foods that I couldn't handle. I committed to another person what I was going to eat, and I got on my knees and asked for God's strength to get me through the day without my drug. And an incredible thing happened. I made it a full day without binging, and it wasn't even that hard. But I was still fearful. I mean, before I'd gone several days and weeks and months even eating healthy, but it was by my own efforts and it never lasted. My motivation to fit into smaller jeans or to look good at my best friend's wedding, it just wasn't strong enough to keep me going. I'd always given to the justifications in my brain to eat more than I needed. But then 2 days passed, and then 4, then 12, then 20, and day after day after day passed, and I hadn't binged. This time really was different. I never woke up without getting on my knees and surrendering my food to God. I asked Him every single morning to give me the grace to walk in obedience and to live by His Spirit. And every single day, His grace has been sufficient. That's the thing about grace. It's not just a bandage to cover sin. Grace is power to walk in obedience to what God calls us to. He's given it to us already in the life and blood of Jesus Christ, and all we have to do is receive it by walking in obedience first. And His power has sustained me. His power has delivered me, and His power has made me a new creation. I am literally set free from food addiction. Freedom from food addiction is more than possible. Finding satisfaction in life outside the pleasure and comfort of food and showing others how to do the same is now my life purpose. But it goes deeper than just food. Today, I blog and vlog and teach about finding a deeply satisfying life in the mundane of the everyday. And the reason I'm teaching it is because I always want to continue to learn how. I'll never arrive. I'll always have more I need to work on, more I need to give to the Lord to heal and restore. But the journey along the way has given me the most satisfying life I've ever known. And I literally can't wait to see what hardship and struggle the Lord's going to turn into glory next.